Okay, good day class. So we are now on the last topic of your midterm and we will now try to cover your cytokines. And I believe that you encountered the word cytokines already during our prelim, specifically in your innate and your adaptive immune discussions. As I mentioned before in my previous video lectures and with your synchronous class, that your cytokines will serve as the communication molecules of your cells. So it means that this, in order for one cell to communicate with other cell, they need to release your cytokines, and then the other cell should have their own receptor for that specific cytokine, so they can communicate. Okay, so again, I am your professor for this video lecture. I am Alfredo Ine Jr. If you have some questions and clarifications, please don't hesitate to beep up your respective professors so we can clear the topics under your cytokines. Okay, let's move and let's start. Okay, so cytokines as described by your reference book, okay, are chemical messengers or communication messengers that regulate the immune system. Okay, I like the word regulate class. Why? Because without cytokines, okay, it's a chaotic, okay, environment. Okay, so your cytokines will try to regulate everything. Okay, because there are some cytokines that will try to suppress. There are some cytokines that will try to upregulate. And we'll try to cover that one later. Okay, so your cytokines have activity, okay, modulating effects, okay, on the hematopoietic and immune system through activation of your cell-bound receptor proteins. So, madali lang yung communication class. Kung meron kang cytokines, dapat meron kang cytokine receptor. If the cell does not have a cytokine receptor, then therefore, hindi niya pwedeng ma-receive. Okay? Yung cytokine na gustong pumasok. Okay? And cytokines are induced in response to binding of your stimuli to specific cell receptor. Yun yung sinabi ko kanina, class. Or through recognition of your antigen by your lymphocytes. And these antigens are not limited to bacterial liposaccharides, flagellin, or other bacterial products, but also viral components class. Like, for example, the DNA or RNA genome of the organism, the capsomere of the virus, and the spike protein of a organism. So, for example, you have your COVID-19. So, your cytokines are divided into three and are classified into three. Either they are autocrine cytokines, ibig sabihin, class, they act on the cell that secrete it. Like, for example, interleukin-2 cells, T cells release interleukin-2 for themselves, okay, in order for them to proliferate. So, ang tawag natin doon, class, autocrine action. So, sariling sikap sila yung nagproproduce ng sarili nilang pagkain. Second, you have your paracrine action. So, paracrine, ibig sabihin, class, they act on the nervous cells. So, one cell will release cytokine to activate the nervous cells. And lastly, you have your endocrine action. So, pag endocrine action naman, class, it travels through blood vessels to a distant cells. The autocrine, paracrine, and endocrine action class is also a principle with your endocrinology. Okay? So, in your clinical chemistry, in your endocrinology, this will also explain, okay, the action. So, the cytokine network class are individuals, with this one class, individual cytokines, okay, do not act alone, okay, but in conjunction with many other cytokines that are induced during the process of your immune activation. And we call this one class cytokine network. So, hindi pwedeng isa lang yung magre-release, interleukin-2 lang. Diba? So, although your interleukin-2 will act as a stimulation for your CRPs, diba, or APRs in your liver. However, your APRs are not enough. So, dapat merong activation of your B cell, okay, to your B cell, to your plasma cell, yung mga activation ng non-glass involve your cytokines. And glass, cytokine production, is it always good? Tingin ninyo, class. Dapat bang sabihin natin na, dapat mag-produce talaga ako ng cytokine production? Yes, the answer is yes. Cytokine is good, pero it's not always. Why? Because overproduction of your cytokines will lead to cytokine storm. So for example, you are infected with COVID-19. In your COVID-19 will activate your inflammatory signals. And then with your inflammatory signals, this will tell your immune cells to release cytokines. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng cytokine storm. Tapos, okay lang sana kung cytokine storms lang. Your cytokine storms, class, will lead to ARDS or acute respiratory distress syndrome. You have a multi-organ failure, hyperinflammation syndrome, or even death, namamatay yung pasyente, class. Okay? So in extreme circumstances, massive overproduction and dysregulation produces a cytokine storm that leads to the following condition as I mentioned earlier. Okay? So hindi siya always good naman, class. Okay? So dapat may ma-regulate pa rin ng cytokines. So for the nomenclature or naming of your cytokines, so we have this one. First, a cytokine could be a lymphocytes. Okay, these are cytokines that are secreted by your lymphocytes. That's the reason why they are called lymphocytes. Then you have your cytokines that are secreted by your monocytes and your macrophages, and we call that one monocytes. So if you can observe, the naming or nomenclature of your cytokines will always based on the producer. If co-lymphocyte ang nagpo-produce, we call that one lymphocytes. If your monocyte and your macrophages will produce a certain cytokine, we call that one monokines. And then you also have your interleukines or interleukins. But your interleukins are secreted by your leukocytes and act upon other leukocytes. And then, based on the discussion ni Stephen Glass, which is our reference book, very critical yung classification. Dapat daw yung cytokine will fall on the three criteria. First, they must have had their genes cloned. So kung meron dito, class, yung interleukine, then they are included on the group. Second, they must be included in the leukocyte. The third, sorry class, in third class, their biological activities in inflammation process must be cataloged. Okay? So if kung na-meet ng isang interleukin or isang cytokine ang tatlo, then therefore they are classified as interleukins. Okay? And then you also have your interferons class. Interferons is secreted in response to viral infections. Then you have your tumor necrosis factor that induce the necrosis of your tumor cells. And then you have your chemokines. And diba, you're familiar with this because we discussed this one in your complement activation. Diba, C4B2A, tapos yung mga other factor na hindi na-create into EC3 or C5 convertase are your anaphylatoxins. Okay, and those are your chemokines. So, class, if kung meron tayong periodic table of elements, we also have periodic table of human cytokines and chemokines families. So imagine, okay, there is around 100, okay, 39 okay, cytokines and chemokines. Pero ang tanong, sir, do we need to really memorize everything? No. Okay, kasi pagdating sa board exam, di naman din natin kayang i-memorize lahat, 'di ba? So, our goal is only cover those topics or cytokines or chemokines that are usually encountered in our board exam for the preparation. And also, because some of you will proceed to medicine, these cytokines and chemokines that we'll discuss are the most important cytokines and chemokines that are associated with the common diseases. Kaya dapat ma-memorize natin sa class. Kaya don't worry. The purpose of the slide is of course for you to not underestimate your cytokines kasi madami talaga sila. So sir, paano ba natin i-discuss yung cytokines pag ganito kadami? Okay, so I prefer to discuss your cytokines, of course, based on our Th1 and Th2 approach. Kasi with your Th1 will increase pag meron tayong pro-inflammatory, and that includes your interleukin 1, 2, 6, 8, and TNF-alpha. Okay, at saka interferon gamma. But not all of the components here will be discussed. So, pipili lang ako ng mga discussion points uh, na very important and crucial for the preparation of your exam and pre-board exam and board exam. Okay, and then next is you have your Th2 or anti-inflammatory. Diba, if you can observe, yung isa na arm pro-inflam. So, ibig sabihin, class, these cytokines will induce inflammation. And then your Th2, these are cytokines that will regulate your pro-inflammatory cytokines. Kaya may siso sila. Ganito sila class. Okay? So if kung isa madami, okay, so this one will be lighter. Okay? So ito balance. Okay? So let's start with the cytokines of your adaptive immune response, specifically with your Th1 cytokines. So with your Th1 cytokines, we'll discuss only two. Okay, that's your interferon gamma and your interleukin 2. So let's start with your interferon gamma. For your interferon gamma class, okay, this is a principal molecule produced by your Th1 cells and affect the RNA expression levels of more than 200 genes. And this is the main reason why this is very important. Okay? And then your interferon gamma is a strong stimulator of your macrophages and it boosts their tumoricidal activity. And we measure, even like with the TB class, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, here in Japan, we measure the interferon gamma specific to a Mycobacterium antigen. Okay, pag ang cutoff is around 0.3 to 0.5, tapos pag mataas ka, then you are classified as a possible active or carrier of your Mycobacterium tuberculosis. I remember class when I was first year here, one of our laboratory tests to be performed during the enrollment is with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis test, or we call that one T-spot. And one of the parameter there is your interferon gamma. And then my the normal range dapat at least less than 0.5 ka, 0.9. That's the normal value cutoff. But my result went out 30, 32. But of course, that's expected because we're medical laboratory scientists in the Philippines. And then I also work in the hospital. So I have a high chance of encountering TB patient, but I'm not active. But I produce already, or my immune cells are primed already with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay? And interferon gamma is a strong stimulator of your macrophage kasi if you can observe here, you have your interferon gamma and then strong stimulator of your macrophage and boost their tumoricidal activity kasi yun yung function niya. Aside kay macrophage class, your interferon gamma will also influence your dendritic cells and also your T cells. Okay, specifically your CD4. Kasi your CD4 here class or helper T cells will be divided to subsets and then you have your Th1 and Treg at saka Th2. And then interferon gamma, okay, production can be stimulated in a mature Th1 cell by two means, sabi ni Stevens. First is ligation or contact of your T cell receptor or TCR by your MHC peptide antigen presenting or antigen presentation. So if you can observe here, ito yung sabi ni Stevens class. Pang APC daw na may daladalang MHC, tapos may peptide, i-present niya kay TCR, yun yung sabi, diba? Ligation or contact of your T cell receptor TCR here to your MHC peptide. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng activation. Okay? And second is the cytokine case stimulation by your interleukin 12 and interleukin 18. Kasi if there will be interaction or ligation of your APC to your TCR, then there will be production of your interleukin 12. Thus, lagay na lang din natin si interleukin 18 class kasi in-include siya ni Stevens. Then the function of this one is the activation of your Th1, then Th1 to your interferon gamma. And kita ninyo yung axis class. Okay, from your ligation of your class 1 to your TCR, and then production of your interleukin 2, then interleukin 2 to the activation of your Th1, then Th1 to the production of your interferon gamma. Next, under your Th1, you have your cytokine interleukin 2. Okay, your interleukin 2 is also known as the T cell growth factor class. Okay, it drives the growth and differentiation of your both T cell and B cell and induce lytic activity in your NK cell. In our laboratory class, I use interleukin 2 with my lymphocytes because aside from influenza, I also do HIV. And then the HIV, as you will discuss that one in your mycology and virology, that the target of your HIV is your lymphocytes. So what I usually do is collect my own blood, separate my blood into PBMCs or peripheral blood mononuclear cells, and that includes your lymphocytes. And then I want to proliferate the T cell in my blood samples. What I usually do is add the recombinant interleukin 2. Tapos, yung recombinant interleukin 2 class will try to activate my T cell and then proliferate. Kaya, dumadami siya class. Then, after 2 days, mag-infect na ako. I'll infect my HIV and then observe the viral growth. And then, for your cytokine, specifically interleukin 2, it induces your macrophage activation and delayed type of hypersensitivity. And your Th1 cells stimulate the production of your IgG1, IgG3 opsonizing and complement fixing antibodies by antigen activating B cells. So without your interleukin 2, magkakaproblema tayo class sa bacterial infection at saka sa hypersensitivity. Kasi connected si interleukin 2 even in the complement activation natin. So the function of your interleukin 2 receptor consists, and the functional interleukin 2 consists of your alpha, beta, and gamma. And we were able to cover this one, correct? In the previous video lecture, okay? Or beta and gamma subunits. Okay, so that's the reason why your interleukin 2 belongs to the common gamma chain. And then the beta and gamma subunit increases the affinity of the receptor for interleukin 2 and are responsible for both of the signal transduction through the receptor. See, if this one is your interleukin 2 class, ang sabi daw here is that if the beta and gamma subunit, this one, the beta and gamma subunit, increases the affinity of your interleukin 2. Kaya dumidikit talaga here yung interleukin 2. And we're done with the Th1. Ganun lang kadali class. Dalawa lang yung pwede nating i-cover. Okay, but if you want to, like, for example, study more with your cytokines, you can. But for the preparation of your exam and for the pre-board exam, might try to cover only the video lecture. But for the board exam, if you think na hindi siya enough, then please try to read other reference book to cover the other interleukins that you think critical for you to understand your cytokine topic. Okay? And then, let's move with your Th2 cytokines because under Th1, dalawa lang. You have interferon gamma and you have interleukin 2. For Th2 cytokines, we will also discuss dalawa. That is your interleukin 4 and you have your interleukin 10. So, your Th2 cells are primarily responsible for the antibody mediated immunity. That includes your interleukin 4 and interleukin 10. So, if you can observe here, with the APC to the CD4, tapos, di ba, meron tayong interleukin 2 at saka interferon gamma. That is your Th1, more on the cytotoxic part of your bacteria here. And then, you also have your interleukin 4 together with your interleukin 2. Okay, that will activate your B cells to plasma cells to your antibodies. Okay, that's the reason why your interleukin 4 here is one of the key cytokine regulating of your Th2 immune activities that will help and aid drive the antibody response. Without your interleukin 4, it would be very difficult for the B cell to mature and proceed to your plasma cells. Remember, class, that your B cells, mature B cells, is not able to produce your antibodies. So isa lang yung nagpo-produce ng antibodies, which is your plasma cells. So your interleukin 4 activity on naive T cell, ibig sabihin ng naive class, is virgin. Yung hindi pa talaga naka-encounter ng antigen. In the immunologic textbook, if you will encounter the word naive, it means virgin. Okay, never been encountered by any antigen. So we call that one naive T cell. Okay, so your naive T cells turns into the genes that generate your Th2 cells and turn off the genes that promote your Th1. Diba? Ang ganda. Kasi dalawa. Pwede daw turn on, pwede daw turn off. So here, if you can observe, your interleukin 4 will turn on your Th2. Okay, and then your Th2 will produce, of course, your interleukin 4 again. And your interleukin 4 will be inhibitory of your Th1. Kaya, walang napuproduce na Th1. Yun yung sabi ni Stevens. Okay? So, naiintindihan, your interleukin 4 will turn on the gene that generates your Th2. Kaya your pre-Th here class will release interleukin 2 kaya nagpo-produce tayo ng Th2. Tapos yung Th2 mo class will turn off. Okay, your interleukin 4 will turn off. Okay, the genes that promote Th1. How? Your Th2 will produce your interleukin 4 and your interleukin 4 will inhibit the development of your pre-Th to your Th1. Okay, so that's how they regulate class. Okay, that's how your cytokine is very beautiful in regulating and regulating the communication between the cell, either turn off or turn on. Then let's move to interleukin 10. Your interleukin 10 has the anti-inflammatory and suppressive effects on your Th1. It inhibits the antigen presentation by macrophage and dendritic cell and simulator CD8. And also induce the production of your MH2 on your B cells. So here, di ba kasi ano naman siya class, anti-inflammatory. So this one, your interleukin 10 daw. So you have your macrophage here. So your macrophage will be released tapos for the proliferation here. Tapos your interleukin 2 will inhibit your dendritic cell. So kung may na-inhibit na yan sa class, then anti-inflammatory na siya. Kasi wala nang action. Mapuputol na yung action here, class. Okay? Kasi meron ng inhibition. Di ba normally you have your macrophage. Macrophage will release inflammatory cytokines. Your dendritic cell will release interleukin 2. That will eventually activate your macrophage and then kill the organism. However, in the presence of interleukin 2, class here, in the presence of your interleukin 2, class, in the presence of your interleukin 10, so ini-inhibit na yung macrophage sa dendritic cell. Kaya siya tinawag na anti-inflammatory cytokine. So one of the major effects of your interleukin 2 is via inhibition of your interferon production via the suppression of your interleukin 12 synthesis. Kaya here, class, this is your interferon. Diba? Ito yung interferon mo. So what if, kung for example, may DC ka here, dendritic cell, tapos will release your interleukin 12. Diba? Suppression of the production of your interleukin 12 synthesis daw. Pag yung pag nag-produce ka daw ng interleukin 12, so mayroon tayong activation of your Th1 and Th1 will release your interferon gamma. Pero your interleukin 10 will have a suppressive activity here. So, kinakat niya here class kaya meron siyang anti-inflammatory effect. Then we are done with your Th1 and your Th2 subset. So we will now discuss your T regulatory or Treg cells. Okay, the third major subclass of your CD4 T cells and are which is your T regulatory or Treg cells. Okay, Treg are CD4 negative and CD5 positive T cells that are selected in the times. Okay, so hindi sila CD4. Tama, hindi sila helper cells, pero they are CD25 positive. So here, if you can observe, pakita ko lang class. So the subsets, you have your Th1, Th2, we're able to discuss that one, representative lang. And then now we will do your TREG, or you have your T regulatory cells. And ang i-discuss lang natin here, class, is your tissue growth factor beta. Kasi sa interleukin 10 is na-introduce na natin siya kanina. So, your TREG class, they play a key role in establishing peripheral tolerance from the term itself. Treg, they will regulate. Okay? So, if you can, example here, for a healthy individual, if the Treg is the same number with your effector T cells, which is normal, okay, para we can have a balance with this one. Okay, so your Treg, okay, will release cytokines that will regulate the action of your effector cells. However, class, the problem of the autoimmune disease where Treg number is lower compared than the healthy individual, then therefore there will be a problem of regulating the effector cells. So you have your tissue growth factor beta that will induce the expression of your FOXP3, a transcriptional factor that causes your Treg cells to suppress the activity of other T cells. So I found a good picture here, class, to explain. So you have your naive T cell here. Tapos, with your naive T cell, class, with the aid of your retinoic acid, it will express your FOXP3. Okay, and then you have your FOXP3 expression, then nagkakaroon na tayo ng Treg. Okay, so the function of your FOXP3 class is more on the class regulation, okay, or tolerance. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, class, siya yung nagre-regulate ng specific na cytokines produced by either your Th1 or Th2 because those are your other T cell effector cells. Then tregs may be found in transplanted tissue and help to establish tolerance to the graft by the host immune system through the alteration of your antigen presentation. And then your T cell suppression occurs through interleukin 10 inhibition of your pro-inflammatory cytokines, as I mentioned this one already, with your Th2, and inhibition of your co-stimulatory molecules expression in the antigen-presenting cells. And then your TGF-beta, down-regulates the function of your APC and blocks the proliferation and cytokine production of your CD4. Tingnan natin yung presentation here, class. Sabi daw here, TGF-beta down-regulates the function of your APC. So, you have your TGF here. So, dito tayo kay Treg. Si Treg daw, class, will inhibit your cellular immunity here. Okay? The T cell suppression occurs through interleukin 10 inhibition. So, ito yung interleukin 10 kasi, class. Pag na-inhibit yung interleukin 10, so wala tayong Th2, then wala din tayong cellular immunity. Okay? Then they exert their suppression activities on both Th1 here, saan yung Th1 here, class? Cellular immunity, and you have your Th2. Okay, cells by producing more interleukin 10, TGF-beta, and interleukin 5. So in summary class, for your cytokine, so it's not an individual reaction, but it is a organized, well organized regulation of a specific immune response. So I know that the video lecture is very short because we only selected a few of the representative for Th1, Th2, and your TREG. So I hope that in the preparation of your quiz and your exam, and maybe with your pre-board exam and board exam, you can only like sort the most important cytokines. Okay, so that's it for the video lectures. I hope that you learned something with this. And then if you have some questions again in our class clarifications, please don't hesitate to contact your professor's class. And congratulations in advance because you finished the 2 terms of your immunology and serology. Okay, so goodbye and then thank you. Thank you, class. I hope that you learned something. And sana may ma-retain for the preparation of your exam and for your quizzes.